County, and this is America's Mayor live from New York City as New York City gets ready for probably by far the best known, most important New Year's celebration that's kind of marks the New Year's for almost the whole world. I mean, I've seen that celebration everywhere. So I'm going to tell you a funny story about it later. Because for 8 years, I was deeply involved in it. I used to push the button that made the thing come down. I'd always have a famous guest with me, Muhammad Ali, Oprah Winfrey, sometimes a very heroic firefighter or police officer. I'm trying to think of who else. Jerry Lewis. I'll get the list, so I'm not just doing it off the top of my head. We just found out that after the decision, which was quite comprehensive, and I shouldn't say it was comprehensive, it was quite obvious, the decision by the Michigan court, all Democrats, 6-1, that Trump should be allowed on the ballot and that the 14th Amendment doesn't present a bar to that. And even the one who voted against said he shouldn't be on the ballot. He should be on the ballot, but for a different reason. So we had basically 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans clearly saying he should be on the ballot. In the Colorado case, it was 4-3. 4 Democrats no, but 3 Democrats yes. So now if you want to do the numbers, we've got 3, 6, 7 Democratic judges who've come to the conclusion that the arguments being made by these scoundrels in trying to take away your right to vote. I mean, you have a right to vote. You got a right to vote against Donald Trump, just like you have a right to vote for him. It's your choice. It's not the choice of the Democrat Party to get it off the ballot. But the Democratic Party works that way. You don't know that because maybe you're part of a Democrat Party in the middle of the country where they're just like everybody else. They're honest people. Democrats. In big cities like New York, they're a bunch of thieves. I mean, this is what I grew up with. And of course, when I used to be a Democrat, so I became a prosecutor. All of a sudden, I started prosecuting, and the crimes they commit are ridiculous. And I quickly realized they were stealing from the poor. I mean, one of the reasons people are Democrats, you think they're better than the poor. No, they're not actually. Even if you look at the old-fashioned, hard-hearted Republican, he wasn't stealing from them. The Democrats were stealing from him. All you need to do is a big 360 and say, would these cities have these financial problems if the Democrats weren't stealing the billions and trillions of dollars that have been given to them since the New Deal and the Great Society? And the answer to that is no. And anytime you'd like to go through the cases that I had in which 3/4 of the money was stolen, I'd be happy to do that. But the point that I want to make is that the Maine Secretary of State has said, she has decided in Maine that Trump should not be on the ballot. I don't know what they should really do to her. Remedial education might help, like learn English. You don't have to be a lawyer if you read that statute to realize that the president is not included in the 14th Amendment. The word president isn't there, lady. So how are you going to take him off when that provision doesn't clearly apply to him? Don't you need some court to interpret it? At least to put the word president there when it isn't there. I have it memorized. I don't need to take it out again. It says that a candidate for Senate, House, elector for president, elector for vice president, or any other office cannot be on the ballot if they engaged in an insurrection. Don't you think it's rather odd that they don't have the word president, vice president there, except elector for president and vice president? And do you actually think they meant to include president after senator, representative, and electors in any other office, which is a throwaway phrase to accomplish? I mean, to impose an enormously significant thing like that, disqualifying someone as a presidential candidate, well, it's got to be precise. You can't read things into it. Am I getting too complicated for you, Secretary of State? I think I am. Because also, how did you figure out he was involved in an insurrection? Since Smith can't even do that. The guy who spent 50 million, 60 million investigating January 6th, with the great desire to try to find him responsible for January 6th. We know from his record in the case that got reversed in the Supreme Court, 9-0, that he wouldn't be beyond lying about it if he'd come up with a good lie. He couldn't even get a good lie to charge him with an insurrection. So where the hell do you come off deciding it's an insurrection? All of these Democrat prosecutors who are prosecuting for things nobody ever heard of before can't prosecute him for insurrection. Nobody's charged him with insurrection. That wouldn't be enough anyway. Nobody's proved it. And in Colorado, they had a trial that wouldn't even pass muster in China. It was all hearsay. They didn't find him guilty of insurrection. They took the J6 report and they used that. Good. Well, take my report and you could put Biden in jail for 150 years. I'll be the only witness. It'll just be my report. By the way, it'll be a hell of a lot more accurate than J6, but I don't think you guys would accept it. We call it hearsay. You just can't throw somebody off the ballot because you've decided you don't like them. You know, particularly if you have any respect for the rest of your country, you know that half this country loves him, right? You know that. All right, let's go to his worst days when they lied so terribly about him about January, when they were lying about January 6th and making it like it was the Civil War or 9/11. Don't you find that repulsive that they would do that? Hide tape, prosecute people that were escorted in by the police, prosecute a guy for invading the Congress when they held the door open for him. I mean, you don't find that worrisome that we've become somewhat of a corrupted, well, somewhat of, that we are a corrupted country. But the reality is, I could give you 10 other reasons why the 14th Amendment does not apply to the office of president. A lawyer that can't figure that out should really do something else for a living. I can't be a lawyer anymore because the corrupt bar associations have gone after me on fatuous, lying charges and have tried to ignore or discount or not allow me to put in evidence that which would defend me. Not only that, they doctored tapes, which for anybody else would be a crime, but they just ignore it. They got rid of 3 hours of the most relevant tapes in Georgia in one of the Bar Association proceeding. So, you know, I don't expect anything from them but a condemnation that I will be very proud of. I think if I got anything else, I would be really disappointed that I must have done something wrong, because they really are. You know how they're corrupt? They're corrupt because their emotions, which are perverse emotions, the Trump derangement thing, has interfered with their ability to be fair, and it's interfered with their ability to reason. So I think the Maine case is not going to get anywhere. Colorado, I don't understand what they did actually. The Colorado Secretary of State has now put him on the ballot and said he won't be taken off unless the Supreme Court decides the case, which means if the Supreme Court doesn't take the case, he's on the ballot, and she's ignoring the decision of her own Supreme Court, which, I mean, I agree the decision was absurd, totally lawless. I think I said it was an attack on the rule of law. But now I don't know how the Secretary of State can just ignore it without getting it reversed. But since Biden has been in charge, the law has meant nothing. It's a tool for their political attacks. It's a weapon. It's not a process to protect people. It's a process to hurt people. And that's not going to change until we get rid of the criminal in the White House and the fascists around him. He's off on vacation again, enjoying a free vacation at a very wealthy person's house that, without any doubt, in my mind, is a clear violation of not the bribery statute, but almost a lesser included offense in bribery under federal law. I think it's 18 U.S.C. 2 or 308. That's like 30 years ago. But he's guilty of an illegal gratuity. Here's why. Joe Biden, for years, stays at the homes of, he says, his friends. Now, if we contrast it with Justice Thomas, there was just one guy, I happen to know him, Harlan, who is his friend, a very close personal friend. And most of the time that Justice Thomas has been there, his friend's been there because he wants to be with his friend. Most of the time, the friend, who's not really a friend, abandons the house to the Biden crime family. They don't want people around listening to that conversation. There'd be too many witnesses against it. Now, we know he has Hunter with him, but they're kind of hiding him. And what he did was he took a place from a couple that I don't think he has any real friendship with. They're donors. A lot of these people are big donors to his campaign. And they got something from him of value. They got a ticket to the first state dinner, the two of them. They're not political. They're not involved in politics. I have nothing to do with President Macron. You could try. If it were Trump and it was Smith, he'd charge him for bribery. He'd take the connection and say, there's an obvious circumstantial connection between that and the House. I wouldn't do that because I'm not a cheap, lying lawyer. And conviction is not that important to me. Justice is important to me. But here's justice. That's a gratuity. It's getting a gift that you're not supposed to get in a way that you're not supposed to get it. And if you're going to get a gift like that, you better not give anything in return because it's starting to make your public office look desecrated, which I don't know how your public office could look any more desecrated. This is so minor, I almost don't want to bring it up. You're a guy that's taken $31 million from China. So an $9,000 free vacation doesn't mean anything. Finally, Joe, this is not just a private house. This guy rents out the house. He even has the number. It's like $800 or $900 a night. Like if I wanted it, I'd have to go pay for it. But you don't. Not because he's your friend, Joe, because you gave him tickets to the state dinner. That's your relationship with him. And in addition to being the worst grandfather that had ever lived, you got to be one cheap son of a. You got a fortune and you can't pay him $8,000 just to make it look good. Like do you know the disrespect you show to all of your fellow citizens who are hounded by details like this? I had people in my administration, if they didn't put down $25 on a form, they would fine them. Or I had a head of welfare, they went after him because he was getting rent, exactly the right amount of rent determined by fair market value from his best friend, who was an employee of his. And the city says you can't do business with an employee. And his argument was, I didn't think I was doing business. I was giving him a place to stay. And we knew it would be an issue. So we got an independent evaluation that the rent would be $800 a month for a single room. And the guy got fined $27,000. And they wanted me to fire him. Well, I happen to think it was being done because he helped me do workfare. You remember what that was? There was a time you were in favor of it before you sold your soul. That's also during the time when you thought that 7 or 8 or 9 month abortion was murder, but you sold your soul on that too. But they wanted me to fire him. But they really wanted me to fire him because he institutionalized welfare and workfare for me. You know, I got more people off welfare than any mayor or governor anywhere. And I got more of them off with jobs, like 80%. The other 20% went to New Jersey, I think. I'm only teasing. The other 20% couldn't get jobs, and they continued to get welfare, but dramatically reduced. And my program, my workfare program, which also was Tommy Thompson's workfare program, and in fairness, borrowed a lot of it from him. But our program was copied by Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton. So I know a lot about this reimbursement for and reimbursement for these vacations that you take. And you are one slimy crook. You haven't paid for any of them. And then you don't list them on the form. But you, like Obama, are in the top rung of the golden circle of corruption. You can't get touched. I really wonder sometimes if we found out you did a murder and we had 5 witnesses in a tape recording, would they put me in jail because I found it? I think so. We are in a bad state, and the whole world looks at us and says we're a corrupt country now. We can't even pretend we're not. But this is an illegal gratuity being completely ignored, and makes it real hard to go after little people for small gratuities when the president of the United States is a schnorrer like you are. Look it up. It's Yiddish. Oh, I forgot. You're not in favor of Israel, right? The caravans come in here while you're on vacation. While you're on vacation in the Virgin Islands, your country is being invaded. Yeah. Since you've been here, we can count about 6 million have come in illegally. The people that you let in, and then you put them on parole for asylum, almost all of them are illegal. None of them have asylum claims. And not only that, all of them should have been denied based on the fact that they didn't claim asylum in Mexico. I mean, you just ignore the law. The law is there to protect your country against people coming in that we haven't properly vetted. You don't vet them. That whole group, that 8,000 coming up there, you should be sending them flyers saying, don't bother to come to the border because you're not getting in. You've got plenty of time to ask for asylum in Mexico. International law requires that you ask for asylum in the first country you end up in. And if you haven't asked for asylum there, I'm going to assume you're not entitled to it. I'm going to pick you up, throw you out, and the bus is not going to head to New York. It's going to head to Tijuana. And if AMLO doesn't like it, what's he going to do? You're going to, geez, I got all these guys, they're not doing anything. I don't think Mexico wants to go to war with us again. The last one didn't end too well for them. And they don't want to go to war with us. It's a bunch of garbage. And you send those 2 pussies down there, and AMLO takes them and what is blinking? A blanket that people put on them? It's like Z and this. I know AMLO. I worked for AMLO. Did a great job for AMLO. Reducing crime. I really worked for the mayor who worked for AMLO. Worked for him with Bernie Kerik. Tough guy. He's the guy who agreed to remain in Mexico with Trump. No one ever thought Trump could get that. Because Trump's a smart man. And Trump puts America first. You were there, I understand, begging to have it back. AMLO must be sitting there thinking that you are some kind of a nut because you did away with it. You had it. That's him, but there's the jackass in the middle. That's our Secretary of State.
Stinking Blinken.
Stinking Blinken, who's he's good at getting phony letters that hard drives have earmarks of Russian collusion. That's his expertise. But doing things like getting AMLO to agree to reinstate the Remain in Mexico thing, that he can't do. You can't do it, Joe, because none of them are afraid of you. None of them respect you or that slob that you send around, or the biggest liar in America, Mayorkas. When he walks in, they probably just are laughing behind their backs. You know, the border is secure. What was it? The record day, 12,500 in one day, just flooding in. And those are the ones we get to see. You know how many more are coming in than when we had a real president? Trump. Trump had about 400,000. You're going to go well over 3 million this year. You were right near there this year. You realize the difference between 400,000 and you know what that means for the unknowns? That means they exponentially go up. Because when you're only dealing with 400,000, you got a lot of time for stopping the unknowns. But when you're getting flooded with an unbelievable invasion way beyond your resources, the rest of the border is wide open to a group of experts who understand that border as well or better than our Border Patrol, and who make millions and billions off exploiting that border. You know, you guys have probably thought of it, but I'm sure you wouldn't do this. You probably figure you're entitled to a little of that, or big chunk of that cartel money, because you're making it available for them. A real president would cut down 70% of that. I mean, like one who loved America, cared about people dying of fentanyl. I don't get it that you don't really give a damn about people with drug problems when you got your son with such a bad problem. Don't get it. But these people are ready to come in, and I have a few suggestions of what we can do to stop it. I am banging my head against the wall by making them, but at least the American people will know that there are alternatives that can be used a year and a half from now. Well, we'll be back very shortly. The foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. Well, welcome back to America's Mayor Live. Hey! Thank you. Mayor. Well, the AMLO meeting was useless. So let's move on to another area in which Biden is selling us out. Iran is at war with the United States of America. Has been for quite some time. They say it. You don't have to take my word for it. Just read the Ayatollah, read Raisi. Now, they have hit us 100 times. We've responded with pinpricks 6 times. And we've responded to decoys because we're stupid and cowardly. Iran is directing what the Houthis are doing and what Hezbollah is doing. When you see those drones that are trying to block shipping in the Red Sea, that is Iran running it. I wouldn't be surprised if Iran's right there at the board helping the Houthis. They definitely are with Hezbollah. They run Hezbollah. That was one of Soleimani's main jobs. The guy who was doing it was taken out by the Israelis, not you. The guy who got revenge for the Americans being killed is Bibi. He had to do with your job for you because you're a useless human being. Thank you, Bibi, for vindicating American life and taking out Mousavi, because they're going to go down an extra level of expertise. Mousavi was Soleimani's right-hand man. He got a lot of American blood on his hands. Why you have a problem killing these people is really because you don't love this country, just like your friend Obama. I think you don't even like this country. But thank goodness that the Israelis took them out and slowed them down a bit. But there's only one thing that's going to work with Iran. It's the only thing that works with bullies. Gee, do you ever read, Joe? Or how about you, Stinking Blinken? Do you read? Yeah, let's take two presidents, an ancient one and a modern one. Let me give you kind of an example. So we could go back to the turn of the 18th into the 19th century. And a new president got elected, Thomas Jefferson. And Thomas Jefferson was many things, including probably the most brilliant man in the White House. Much maligned about slavery. He knew what it was, unlike Haley. But he was extremely guilty about it and made many efforts to try to end it. Now, he wasn't a perfect man, and he wasn't a miracle man. He wasn't able to do it, but he wrote iconic words in our founding documents that made it almost necessary for us to eventually do emancipation, because he created up a country with a massive moral contradiction. All men are created equal. He knew exactly what he was doing when he wrote it. Just read his letters. The man was like a Trump, except he didn't have. If he had Twitter, he'd probably be tweeting. He used to write out what he thought. And John Adams also. And if you ever want to become educated, read it. But you probably don't, because all you do is follow the communist propaganda. So Jefferson he wasn't a pacifist, but he was, I guess, he was, you know what he was? He was a non-interventionist like we have now. He took up that part of Washington's program, because Hamilton had some and he had the other, which is America is best staying out of foreign entanglements. And the pirates in Tripoli were, and they're Islamic Muslim pirates that were going after infidels and taking their ships. It was a religious thing, and taking their ships and charging huge amounts of money. And Adams was paying it. It was a business decision. It was worth it. All the other countries were paying it. And Jefferson, when he first heard about it, they were making some payments. He found out about the payments, and he said, "To hell with you. I'm not going to pay you a cent." He went to war against them. Little tiny country, just coming out of a revolution, with a navy that I don't know what we had. That's a man with guts, isn't it? Now, Joe, I don't expect that you know this, but what are the first words of the Marine Corps hymn? From the halls of Montezuma.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli.
Okay.
Back to you. Oh, you're explaining it before we play the whole thing.
We're playing it now?
No, we're back to you.
So I'm not around that time with Montezuma and Tripoli, we didn't have a Marine Corps, which basically would mean soldiers coming off boats. Marines get really angry at me for saying that, aren't they? Soldiers coming off boats. Like, to compare them to anybody else, like, oh my God. But I mean, basically, it's so that you would have a You'd have the
There's Tripoli.
yeah, there's Tripoli, and those are the Marines who remember. Marines go to the Naval Academy, so they're an offshoot of the Navy. Although they don't like that offshoot part. They got a special esprit de corps. God bless them, but they do. And this was one of our first wars. Gosh, may have been our first foreign war, and we won it. We won it not because we were bigger or stronger, but we were just smarter and braver. And we beat the Muslim pirates. And they were trying to do exactly what these Muslim pirates are doing. They were trying to block the Red Sea. Jefferson said, screw you. And he went right after them. Now, Iran is really running this show here. And you're worried you're going to escalate if you hit Iran. What happened when Trump put Soleimani out, killed him, that you opposed? I guess, did you get money from Iran too, Joe? I don't know. I don't get it. You give them billions and they kill us with their money. Your former boss should be in federal prison for the rest of his life for the money that he gave to them. Because that money went right to Soleimani, who used, I'm sure, a lot of it to kill our boys and girls. And why people make him a prince, I don't get it. Not a guy who's done the horrible things to this country that he's done. But that one, probably the most horrible. You cannot explain giving money to a terrorist country. You can't explain it. And you can't claim to me you're a human being if you do that, a real human being. So Trump took out Soleimani, right? Oh, it could be terrible, terrible. And Iran retaliated, yeah. They didn't kill anybody. I don't think they had a single American casualty. They're so afraid that they were so afraid, like you're afraid that they'll escalate. So the Trump had it reversed. They were afraid that Trump would escalate. See, that's what a president does, half-wit. That's what a Jefferson does. That's what a Reagan does. And then when we have a lily-livered, crooked coward in the White House, you sit there biting your nails that you can escalate things, and you're hitting decoys. So they do 100 attacks on us, directed by Iran. You do 6 responses that are laughable. Almost better not to do them because you encourage them to do more when you do it. If you're going to do a cowardly response, showing you're not up to fighting a bully, don't do it. Just hide and be the coward you are. And they may get tired of making a fool out of you. So if the lesson, which has been written in many newspapers today by many people who participated in this, is the only thing that Iran's going to stop, the only thing to stop Iran is if they pay. If they pay a big price for what they're doing. And they will stop. Because there's another thing that either because of your communist leanings and the people around you, or basically your complete incompetence in foreign policy, which Gates warned us about. Do you realize that Iran is not ready for a major war? They are on the verge, thanks to you, of becoming a nuclear power, including giving the money to do it. But they would be from everything we can tell, and you probably would know better, but the state of our intelligence has been so bad and so wrong for 20 years. I'm not sure of that. But I mean, from everything you can tell, they are at the point where they could get to 90% enrichment, which is what they would need in 3 weeks. And a couple of weeks ago, they were saying they were going to be there by January 1st. So they're basically right there. But now you got to step back and say, what would that mean? That would mean only 3 missiles. They're not going up against Israel with 3 missiles. Now, I'm not saying Israel has nuclear weapons. Nobody is allowed to say that. I mean, people say Israel has nuclear. Do you have nuclear weapons? Netanyahu doesn't answer and has a big smile on his face. So let's just assume, you have to assume Israel has nuclear weapons. Figure they don't have 1 or 2. And would you imagine they've got like state of the art? What do you think? I don't even have to think. You know how many of those rockets from Gaza and even Hezbollah are hitting? 2%, 3%, with an iron dome that has to operate in 12 minutes. Do not discount the ability of the Israelis. They kicked the living shit out of you in the 6-day war. I mean, and every one of you came against them. Oh, everyone around. They got hit here, they got hit there, they got hit here, they got hit there. So everybody's worried about a two-front war for Israel. Iran's worried about a two-front war with Israel because they're not ready for it. Do you know that, Joe? Because if you don't know that, somebody around you has to know it. And you're protecting them from it. Just like you've protected Iran. I mean, Trump had them on the balls of their you-know-what. And then you did away with all the sanctions. That last $6 billion you were trying to slip to them was nothing compared to what you've given them over the last 3 years. And did you do it in cash the way your crooked boss did? I don't know. I'd like to know that because that'd be another reason to put you in jail. So the Suez Canal is at the very top. When we say top, we mean north of the Red Sea. So we're talking about the oil. This is the place from which half the world's oil comes. This is one of the most critical national security avenues in the world. And the dominant navy in the world should be able to control it. And we have ships there. And we got some pretty damn good ones. And we're taking down their drones. But we're not hitting them. We did like 4 hits at the beginning on ammunition dumps, and 2 of them had no ammunition. We are very careful to hit places where there are no people and we won't kill people. Now, they have killed one of our contractors. They've put 25 of our guys into traumatic brain injury, including long-term hospitalization. We're pretty sure they killed a soldier 4 days ago when they hit Erbil hard, hit Erbil hard. Now, we hit back for that, and we think we kill somebody. But they're ahead of us like 100 to 6. And they're figuring we're not going to do anything that shakes things up. So they'll just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. Now, one good shot on the head of the Ayatollah, and it's over. And I'm going to tell you, Iran Iran's not ready. You can tell Iran's not ready because they're holding Hezbollah back. If Iran was ready for the big war with Israel, Hezbollah would have invaded. Hezbollah is much bigger. Hezbollah could give Israel a fight. But right now, the Iranians and maybe even the Chinese and the Russians that are helping them evaluate, don't want to take on Israel. They'd like to do it, all the best intelligence says, in about 3 years. At that time, they can have their axis together. They can be working together. There'll be much more of a nuclear power. And as my special podcast that you can get if you subscribe on X, go to X, hit the subscribe button, $10 a month. We've got about 6 of them on there now. One of them explains the difficult decision Iran has to make about whether to strike now while they have a useless president, or strike at the time they feel they're ready, where they may have a real president. Tough choice. China has a similar choice.
Mayor, was Iran's lack of a strong response after the death of Soleimani, or the killing of Soleimani? Did that tell you anything about how unprepared they were?
Of course.
I mean, there was very little response from them, right?
Tell you everything. No, they did a lot of bombing, but they made sure they didn't kill anybody. It's like the Hezbollah attack on northern Israel up until a couple of nights ago was almost we got to do this, but we're not doing much damage. Maybe they killed 4 or 5 people. They did some damage to property. The Israelis in return kicked the living daylights out of them. I mean, hit them really hard. But then on Monday, Hezbollah did a major attack on northern Israel. And Israel, and I think maybe that was because Israel took out Mousavi. And then Israel yesterday did a major attack on them and killed 4 of their commanders. Up until then, it was a game. Up until then, Hezbollah was sort of nursing along Hamas and making them think they were helping them and not doing very much. But they weren't hitting Israel so that Bibi felt, well, we're going to have to invade. Israel, for all the worry about this, Israel is perfectly prepared for a 2-front war. And of course, much better if they could get the help of Biden, but no boots on the ground Biden, you can't count on him. So why don't we take a short break? And when we come back, we're going to have Dr. Maria with us. She can sit over here.
Device is something that you can plug into your television, and now you can use your television as a social television type experience. So in the Portal universe, you can watch your favorite content creators' videos, live streams, music. We also have TV subscriptions as well.
TV subscriptions.
You can also
regular channels, all the sports.
Right, you can actually cut your cable from your cable subscription and get QUX TV on our QX TV boxes, and you can pay half the price that you're currently paying for your cable television subscription, and you can get all the best premium TV channels and more. I mean, it's really, there's so much on there, Rudy. I mean, you've seen it.
No, I've seen it and I use it, and it's good. I mean, it's just exactly the same except for half the price. Plus, nobody is finding out what I'm watching, and that's not being reported to anybody.
Right, so you have absolute privacy using this device, which you don't have on other devices out there currently on the market.
This is absolutely great. QUX.TV is how you can find out about it. QUX.TV.
Use promo code RUDY to receive $30 off.
Welcome back to America's Mayor Live, and welcome back to Dr. Maria, who
I flew in today just for you, Mayor Giuliani, just for America's Mayor
and
Live.
because we got another indication of how New Hampshire weeds out the ones who shouldn't be president. I'll tell you that.
I tell you,
wow.
You have a unique insight since you ran for president. You got to know the New Hampshire folks, and New Hampshire, we're very much into our politics, and we know the important role we have in the first in the nation primary. So in Berlin, New Hampshire yesterday, Berlin was an industrial town, paper mill, wood went everywhere to build houses, paper everywhere, a great, great town. One of the lowest cost places in the whole United States, too. But anyways, this very astute person out of left field says to candidate Nikki Haley, tell us, basically I'm paraphrasing, why the Civil War started. Well, it was kind of off left field. He must have known something. And she kind of backed up, thought about it, said it was a complex question, talked about a rights of government and a little bit of overreach. And she stumbled to come up that it had anything to do with slavery. Of course, the next day in New Hampshire, she was in North Conway, she pulled back and said, of course, I know it's about slavery. Well, I have to tell you, I was taken aback. A lot of people I know are voting for Nikki, and that really turned people off. And I just wanted to, if you allow me.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Mayor and I work together, and we have a show together every Sunday. So he knows how much I am about states' rights and how much I love New Hampshire. So I do have to say something about New Hampshire and the Civil War, right? A little towny place. At the time of the Civil War, only a little over 300,000 people. We sent approximately 32,000 men and women, 826 officers, 3,000 men for the Navy and the Marines. We had 18 regiments, including the famous Fighting Fifth that was in every major battle. And even at the time of the Civil War, generals remarked on the incredible bravery of the Fighting Fifth. They do have a really bad distinction, though. They had the most die in the Civil War out of any regiment in the Union. So we have this proud history of wanting all men free, and of course, Black men and women, slavery. And the thing that's kind of interesting, putting on my thinking cap, I was an executive in hospitals in several southern states, and it is a minority of people, but I did have people say this to me who would call me a Yankee, who would bring up the Civil War and say it was the war of northern aggression. And again, a minority of people still harbor this thing of the North thinking they're better than the South, telling us what we can do with our lives. And that's exactly what I saw Nikki Haley do. She started
Pandering?
on that. Well, not pandering.
Oh,
I think
I don't
she
think she
really doesn't realize it was about slavery. I think she really thinks it was the war of northern aggression, telling the South. Remember, South Carolina was the first state to secede, and they have this proud history of that. Again, it's a minority, but they keep it alive a
And
little
so she
bit.
doesn't think it was about slavery. When the first sentence in their Declaration of Secession is because people in the North don't accept slavery. What a liar.
There's
A lying piece of, first of all, she knows it's about slavery. She's the reason she was as confused as what she was. Okay, I know politicians really well when they don't have a core. She didn't know where to go for that answer. God forbid she should go to
off your tongue, right?
God forbid she should go for the truth.
Yeah.
So she turned around like I thought. She's like a boxer. You're in the ring. You don't get to turn around and go sit in your corner. She turned around, and she had to think about the answer
I was Godsmack.
because she's figuring out what
Yeah.
kind of lie am I going to tell. I got to tell some kind of lie here. I can't tell the truth. If I say it's too much about slavery, the people in South Carolina will get angry at me. And if I don't say it's about slavery, the people in New Hampshire will get angry at me. And I don't know what she believes. I don't think it really matters. All she believes is I'll sell my soul to be president. And I would say she now goes in the category of the thing that you always fear when you run for president, that I was even taught, that one answer that can take you out for good. This will live with her forever. This was a cowardly answer. It was a lying answer. It shows that Donald Jr. must have had an instinct somewhere or other when he said, I wouldn't let my father make a vice president over my dead body.
Wow.
And my son Andrew will tell you the same thing.
Wow.
He worked in the White House. You know how Andrew gets on her whenever we mention her.
Yeah, it's still.
He loves Trump, but he was okay with DeSantis.
Was she born and raised in
And
South Carolina?
This is not a Southern thing. This is her as a pandering. Typical what's wrong with us. She might as well be a Democrat. I mean, she might as well be a Democrat. We don't need people like this in the Republican Party. I mean,
I've been in South Carolina several times because I am a
I
Civil
love South
War
Carolina.
buff. I've gone to many, many battlefields. Of course, I've been to Fort Sumter.
war's over.
And I just love our history of it. As tragic as it was, good things came out of it, right? We ended slavery. And but just an interesting little fact
The
about South
Republican Party
Carolina.
came out of it. Republican Party was
Absolutely.
built. The
Abraham
Republican
Lincoln,
Party
the father
was
of it.
built on by the anti-slavery movement.
Yes, that's right.
This party,
Even in New Hampshire.
this party's history
Yeah.
is anti-slavery. The evil party's history is slavery, as you might imagine.
It's very interesting. South Carolina, in the day, back in the Civil War time, when they seceded, almost every state that seceded and formed in the Confederacy had people who didn't really want to secede. It wasn't like 100% of the population agreed with those decisions. So they were called if I pronounce this right, secedist. And almost every state then would have people from that state go and join the Union, leave that particular state and go and join the Union. South Carolina has the distinction of not having one anti-succedus leave and join the Union troops.
Well, I
So
mean,
it's just kind of interesting. But I love the South. It's so funny. My perspective when I look at history and what we're going through now is that one time we needed the North to rise because it was the right thing. It was the moral thing. And we needed to preserve.
yeah, I mean,
the Union.
there-
But now I think it's the South. It's the South who sends more of their children to join the military.
they have less anti-Semitism.
And I love the South. And they will rise again to bring
Sure,
America back. Make
the
America
world
great again.
changes dramatically. And right now, without any doubt, there's less anti-Semitism and a great deal more support for Israel in the South
Yeah,
than
absolutely.
than
Amen. More
in
support for our
New-
military,
in
for
New-
our law enforcement.
in New
Yep.
York, where Jew haters and take over the
It's
bridge.
disgusting.
Who would ever have thought that New York would have massive riots of people
No.
who hate Jews? New York, who has gained so much
There's
from the
8
Jewish
million
people,
here and a huge Jewish population.
that
Yeah.
have made enormous contributions to this place. But in any event, Nikki Haley, bye bye.
Yeah, this
Also,
is-
if you
this
if
This is bad.
at
Yeah,
it-
go ahead.
yeah, and then should we play the Ukraine one too, with that unbelievably stupid look on her face when she doesn't know the provinces in Ukraine and she was the UN ambassador? I don't like phony intellectuals.
We'll come back to that one. We gotta upload that one next.
All right.
This one.
Yeah, let's play this one.
is the one from last night.
Can we hear it? Can we?
What was the cause of the United States Civil War?
Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the
Trying to figure out how
I
to
wish
lie.
they showed the guy.
You heard it? Did you hear it? Did it sound?
Play it again.
Play it again if you can.
What was the cause of the United States Civil War?
well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was? I'm sorry?
I'm not running for president. I wanted to see your viewpoint on the cause of the Civil War.
The cause of the Civil War, he asked. That's exactly what he said. I wish they would have shown it. There was a lot of veterans in the audience in Berlin.
Well, I mean, the reality is, to say that the cause of the Civil War is a very tough question. It's a tough question if you want to lie and you don't want to tell people what you really think, because it's going to hurt you on one side or another. Whatever her position on the Civil War, we should know it. I mean, maybe she has some kind of Neanderthal position on the Civil War. Okay, she got a Neanderthal position. Let's know it. The worst part of it is she's, by instinct, a political liar.
Maybe she doesn't read.
No, I don't think she's that dumb. She can't be that dumb. But although now, when you figure that she doesn't know the 3 critical oblasts
Ukraine.
in Ukraine. Now, I don't expect that you would know that. I don't expect that most senators would even know it. But I do expect that the person at the UN would know it.
Or someone advocating for us to continue to fund this endless war. And we don't know where the money is going.
Yeah, and people getting killed by the dozens. I mean, hundreds of thousands of
And there's
people.
no plan to end the war.
Well, there may be, because there was the first indication today in a leaked article that Europe, the United States, apparently this $25 million worth of arms that we're sending, he's been told this is it. You're not getting anything else unless Congress approves. And Europe,
We got to grow some balls in the
and
Congress, though.
Europe is saying, maybe we've got to be realistic and we need a compromise, which means you leave Russians keep what they take. The Ukrainians have the distinction of having stopped them from taking all of Ukraine.
I may
And
be naive, but I never bought that Putin would have moved on to Poland or anywhere else. I don't think he's that stupid, because Poland's part of NATO. And we would have to come to their aid as well as everybody else in NATO.
yeah, I think
So I never bought that if we don't give all this endless money to Ukraine, that again, there's no accountability where the money is going, that, oh, Putin's going to move on to other countries. I never, ever bought that.
He was very, very careful not to step over the line.
Yeah.
I think he was tempted, but I think the answer to what would Biden do if he hit a NATO country might be, even though he is a coward, traitor, he'd be pushed so far, it would just be automatic because the treaty is so solid. And he would also get a tremendous amount of resistance in his administration from the non-communist people. So I think, Putin's a very careful man. Remember, Putin played him like a fiddle before and got him to say 50 times in the most humiliating way possible, no boots on the ground, no boots on. No, if Putin goes into Ukraine, we'll be very upset, lots of sanctions, no boots on the ground, no boots on the ground, no boots on the ground, no boots on the ground. You could see Putin wanting him to say it and watch him. Like, is it for real? Because once he knew it was for real, he had a free shot. And this is exactly what Iran is doing to him right now. Iran is doing to him what bin Laden did. Bin Laden declared war on the United States 3 years before he hit the World Trade Center. And then he took out the coal, did a couple of other attacks, and America did Biden. Clinton did bomb an empty field. And by that point, he had felt out America, did not realize that the change in administration, we'd go from a appeaser to a warrior, and then got hit back very, very hard, but didn't anticipate that. That's what Iran is doing right now. And on my piece that you can get on the subscription channel, I explain the difficult decision that Iran has right now. Should they strike now while they have the coward in the White House, but if they're not ready, 3 years from now, they're going to be much more prepared.
And they're going to interfere in
but
our elections. So isn't China. Because
they
they want Biden.
Of
They
course.
want Biden.
Well, why wouldn't they want
They're
Biden?
the only ones who want
First of all,
Biden.
China's invested a lot of money in Biden.
Yeah.
They're going to lose a lot of
Yeah.
money when they not only have they invested money in China, now everybody knows they did, and Trump knows they did. So he's not going to be too happy with them over. He was the only president who was tough on them and any of our presidents. Yeah. He's the worst choice that you could get.
I would have never invited that freaking guy to our country. Never.
Oh, with the big reception
Yeah,
in
big reception in San Francisco.
in,
And
in Red San Francisco.
Yeah, though they cleaned up all the poop on the ground and got the homeless.
Yeah, but all the people
out of there.
cheering for
Now
him.
they're coming back.
Cheering for communists.
Yeah.
Cheering for communists.
Chinese flag was out everywhere.
Well,
Angered me.
well, thank you, New Hampshire. By tomorrow on our subscription channel, we're going to give you 5 other examples of people whose big mouth talked them out of being president of the United States.
Oh, that's going to be a good one. So just to remind you, go on Twitter or X and when you go to Rudy's, at Rudy Giuliani, hit subscribe and you can get all this special material.
Yeah, right now there are 6. Eventually there'll be 100. You'll have got plenty on
Well,
there.
good seeing you.
And eventually you'll be able to communicate and we'll be able to talk.
Good seeing you, pal.
Thank you to New Hampshire for weeding out a terrible lost New Hampshire and the primary. And who knows what happened? So now we are going to end this segment of the show and move into soccer time.
Soccer time.
Just say thank you for joining us.
And we're back.
Well, thank you very, very much for joining us for today's show. I think it was a really interesting show and a real indication of how this primary process can help weed out the people who could be terrible presidents. I mean, they really weeded out Biden, but they cheated. What could you do? I mean, the fact that he had to sit in a basement for the entire primary, I think, told the majority of Americans he shouldn't be president. But then they did the hiding of the hard drive, which was fraud number one, and fraud number two is the one that the establishment wants to put him in jail for having discovered and pursued. But me too. So thank you for joining us. God bless America.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Army. Our flags unfurled to every breeze, from dawn to setting sun. We have fought in every climate and place where we could take a gun. In the snow of far-off northern lands and in sunny tropic seas, you will find us always on the job, the United States Army. Here's health to you and to our corps, which we...
Well, now we're in soccer time. We'll do about 15 minutes of it. And so that I can talk to you about a case that I wanted to talk about during the show, but we only have a certain amount of time, and this is the stabbing that took place in New York on Christmas Day. A guy named Hutchison, who is a convicted in the last, I don't know how many years, but 17 convictions. And his convictions are basically all violent crimes, and a good number of recent convictions. On Christmas Day, walked into a restaurant that's part of the food court at Grand Central Station, and first made some very, very racist remarks to the head waiter or waitress about how he wanted to be sitting with the crackers, or he didn't want to be sitting with the crackers. He may have been inconsistent with that. And while he was arguing about where he would sit with the white privileged people, he took out a knife and he stabbed two young women, two young women from Uruguay who were here with their family for Christmas. They were here in New York for Christmas. One is 14 years old. The other is her older sister. We don't have the age. I'm thinking she's a teenager, toward the 18, 19, something like that. The teenager was much more seriously injured. She has a collapsed lung and she's in critical condition. They will not say critical condition, expecting to make it or not. I'm hoping and praying and have slight feeling it's critical condition, but I have a slight feeling, and maybe it's my optimism, that she's going to get through it. But in any event, she's going to have a collapsed lung and who knows what else. Now, here's the tragedy of this. Some crimes you can't stop. Although, when I was mayor, I always took the view, try to stop them all and you'll stop most of them. And they have the view, don't stop any. So in any rational place in the world, this man would be either in jail or in a mental institution. It can only be in a country with no desire to protect its own people, with no moral base, where you can tell the difference between good and evil. or you can tell what's needed to protect your population. Could this happen? A year or two into my being mayor of New York, it might have happened at the beginning, but it wouldn't have happened. And it wouldn't have happened in Bloomberg's New York with Ray Kelly, or with Bill Bratton as my police commissioner, or Howard Safer, or Bernie Kerik, or Ray Kelly. You don't even need the mayor. You get the police commissioners and the mayor, one or the other. Now, here's why it wouldn't have happened. Because the guy, as I said, was arrested 17 times. He was arrested on November 7th for threatening to kill someone. They let him out. Then the key date becomes, I think, December 12th. December 12th, on December 12th, he gets arrested again for threatening to kill someone, and in this case, threatening to shoot them. Now, the person I think was Arab. The name is an Arabic name, and he said something like, I don't really give a damn if you have a green card. I'm going to kill you anyway. The others had all been white. The other recent ones, the one on November 7th, and there was an earlier one in the summer, were attacks because people were white. And this attack, the one on the 12th of December, just 2 weeks before he stabbed the two girls, was directly a threat to kill, the beginning of an attempt, and it looks like it was the hate part of this crime is he was going after a Muslim or an Arab. I think that's the case, and he made reference to the green card, and he said, "I'm going to kill you," and he was stopped. He was arrested. He was found in possession of a knife. And he goes to the Bronx District Attorney's office. This is not Bragg, our Soros paid for prosecutor. Bragg probably would have given him the Medal of Freedom and had him out immediately. The Bronx prosecutors, so the police have done their job with this guy. They've arrested him so often it probably gets to be boring, and they work really hard to try to get him in jail. So this is not a problem of any inadequacy on the part of the New York City Police Department. And now I'm going to tell you, because we tend to blame the police or the prosecutors all the time. They're not always at fault. Large problem we have are political hack judges. I mean, I think many of you see it nationally with Judge Engelmore on that has the Trump case. You can tell that guy's a hack, right? I mean, if you can't, it's tough on you. I mean, he's run for judge 3 times, never with an opponent, because he's put on by the party boss, just like all these guys are. These judges are beholding to the political clubhouse, all of them. I mean, if you get a good one, it's by luck. So the district attorney takes a pretty tough position, says this guy's got to go in. And let's put him in a mental hospital, which is where he belongs. So the judge says to confer with the defense lawyer. The defense lawyer says Mr. Hutchinson would rather not go to the hospital. The judge lets him out on conditional release. He lets him out. All he has to do is look at his record and know he'll be back in 2 weeks. I mean, the judge might as well have gone with him to the restaurant and stabbed the girls. His name is Judge, I'll spell it for you, Grieco. Greco. He's only on the bench for a short period of time. He's been appointed by Mayor Adams in March. He spent his whole life as a court clerk. As far as I can tell, he was never really a lawyer. He was a clerk who writes drafts of opinions for judges and does errands for them, like the clerk who sits next to Judge Engelmore and sits on his lap all the time, who actually is a political functionary, because that woman spends most of her time working for the Bronx, for the Manhattan clubs, including running herself for office, completely in violation of the laws and the rules, which don't apply to her. Only, they're applying non-laws to Trump, but they don't apply any laws to themselves. So the party has somebody there to watch Engelmoron to make sure Trump is really screwed, because she's put there by the Democratic leader of Manhattan. Now, this guy, looking at his record, I don't know, I would say his rabbi, we call the person who kind of engineers all these things for you the rabbi. Not meant to be anti-Semitic or anything, and Jewish people use it too as an expression, don't worry. But he's the one calling the shots. Probably is the Bronx Democratic leader or somebody close to him, because the guy basically was living on the government tit all his life. In other words, he was a government employee of a crooked government, which would be New York City. And then they made him a judge. There's nothing on his record that would suggest to me he should be a judge. Now, Adams put him on. Something strange happened today. When I woke up this morning and I heard this, and I was on the air with my son and John Catsimatidis, who were doing the early morning show on ABC, I said, if I woke up, and I can take myself back to when I was mayor, or Ed Koch, who I learned it from, today would be, let New York know that Judge Greco maybe should consider getting the hell off the bench before he kills somebody else, because I'd have ripped that guy apart. Not because I wanted to, but to protect my people, because he shouldn't be having any more cases. I mean, we're lucky this girl's alive. Maybe the next one will die. This guy is such a left-wing fool that he doesn't belong on a bench. I mean, you can't have somebody, a person on a bench has to be fair and equal. They can't be in love with criminals. If they have some strange left-wing love affair with criminals, and they actually think you can get criminals better by putting them back out on the street, well, then just come take a look at New York and what you've done to us. Or maybe you want to look at Philadelphia or all the other places Soros has ruined with the get him out of jail thing. There are about 8,000 people walking around New York that would be in jail if I were mayor, or Bloomberg. And this is one of them. Some of them are close cases, no doubt about it. There are some, look, I was a tough prosecutor and I appointed tough judges. So in my case, we're going to err on the side of protecting the public. But I understand when you have a tough case. I am a lawyer after all. This is not tough. This isn't close. Now, you put somebody out in a closed case and you get somebody killed, I'm probably going to go after you pretty bad. But when you do what this guy does, I really think somebody should just walk in, take away the robes, burn them, and say, go back to being a clerk, huh? Well, you can't hurt anybody because you're not a judge. A judge is fair, and the judge thinks about victims, not just accommodating criminals. And this man, according to his girlfriend who was interviewed, who no longer is his girlfriend because she has orders of protection against him, says that he is a paranoid schizophrenic and is something else too. He's some other one of those names. And when he doesn't take his medicines, he's in really bad shape. But when he does take his medicines, oh my gosh, he's like, the greatest guy in the world. I don't know if that's true. I do know that he had 17 arrests. And and people say, oh, it's a shame the system has let him down. Frankly, I'm more concerned about the two girls that the system let down. We can worry about him after. Yeah, and we should be worrying about him while he's locked up when he can't hurt anybody else. Then we'll give him all the medicines he wants. You can have plenty of medicines, but somebody better be around to make sure he's taking them, because you let this guy out again and somebody's going to die. Now, I appointed those, that's a criminal court judge we're talking about, because they set bail. Criminal court judges in the city of New York are appointed by the mayor, which means from time immemorial, they're part of the Democratic crooked system, because there's a Democratic mayor. Except if you have Camelot, you get a Republican. And you get a Republican that, number one, is independent. You get a Republican that's tough, and you get a Republican that knows they're a bunch of crooks. I didn't appoint any of their people. I just threw them out. I had a committee that recommended to me judges as qualified. And I would not appoint a judge unless the judge was qualified by an independent committee. That included Democrats as well. But I also took the position that just because they said somebody was qualified, I wouldn't necessarily appoint them. I interviewed every one of them. And I turned some down that the committee thought were qualified because they weren't qualified enough for me. And one of the things I made sure is that they were tough, that they weren't going to put the citizens of my city in jeopardy of being killed because of their stupid ideology, because of their sick ideology, because they were brainwashed in law school, or because they have their own personality problems that makes them love criminals. And when I would run into this situation after I started doing, I think I appointed 100, and they lasted for a long time. And I would say that Mike was not anywhere near as tough as I was, and after all, he wasn't a lawyer either. He couldn't make. He was a much better businessman, and there are a lot of things he could do that were better in certain areas. But in this area, I had a special ability because I spent my life in the courts. I knew a good judge from a bad judge. I knew a tough judge from a weak judge. I could tell you a judge immediately that's going to get rolled over by some kind of stupid liberal argument. But then, when there was still plenty of the crazy Democrat liberals there. And every 3-4 months, I would get a case, although I don't remember one quite this bad, but I'd get one like the Koch kind of case. And the first thing I would do is always worried, who appointed him? And I never had one, thank God. And if it was my own, I was going to have to do a mea culpa for not being perfect in my selection of judges. I don't think I ever had one of my own. Maybe I did near the end. I can't remember. Now, the judges go nuts when you do that, when you attack them. You know what they say? They say they're independent. What? Yeah, they are independent. They're independent of being corrupted. They're not independent from criticism. What do they think? They're in Russia? They're not judges in Nazi Germany who you couldn't criticize. I mean, this is the whole thing with this this criminal Smith who is prosecuting Trump. This guy gives it away. No wonder he was reversed 9-0 by the Supreme Court with language that basically said he should never really be in the Justice Department again. Did you ever consider why Garland, if he wanted a fair prosecution of Trump, picked an unfair prosecutor? So you can look at Smith's background and the Supreme Court decision and say, this guy, they already tell you, is an unfair prosecutor. But why don't you go find one that doesn't have that on his record, huh? If you want a fair outcome. And even if you want to bullshit us and make us think you want a fair outcome, why don't you pick one that doesn't have that on the record, but maybe you know it secretly? Say you're just sticking in our face that you're giving us a prejudiced, miserable creep who should never have been a lawyer, who already has done this to somebody, ruined their career. Case then gets reversed because of his misconduct. So, I mean, what he's doing right now is a perfect indication. He's going to court now, and he wants the judge who he has in his pocket, right? I mean, she'll do anything. She'd write an order saying Trump should be required to commit suicide. So he's going before her, and he wants her to tell Trump now that he can't say this at trial. First of all, it's hard to remember. I don't think in my whole career I ever did that. And I prosecuted like real criminals with real crimes, not things that you do because you're a political prostitute and you're told to do it and you have to make it up. But I'm going to beat you no matter what you say, because I had the facts. He doesn't want Trump to say at trial that it's politically motivated. Well, of course he doesn't. Of course it is. Of course it's politically motivated. I don't think there's a defendant in America right now that has 4 major trials scheduled for next year. As Trump likes to say, Capone got tried once. My mafia guy guys got tried once or twice, never in the same year. I never heard of somebody having 4 trials in 1 year. They line them all up for the election year. I also have to just remark at the coincidence that they're all Democrats who have prosecuted them. And where their local cases, they're all in crooked cities. They're all in completely crooked Democratic cities like New York and Fulton County. Those you want to tell me that those cities are fair?
Add DC to the mix.
Well, I mean, DC's a joke. You can't get a fair trial in DC, as I was told by every lawyer that I consulted on my own case. Well, you think you can get a fair jury trial? Get out of here. And with the judge you have, no way. Oh, she'll get really mad about that, but what the hell? What are they going to do to me? They've already done everything they can. Here's the simple fact is I'm telling the truth and they're lying. And that's why they're angry at me. And they're angry at me because I brought it out. I'm not even sure this Biden stuff you'd be examining if it wasn't for me. I don't know who would have brought it out. I mean, I got it. Not looking for it. I got it defending Trump. And it was a side part of Hillary's corruption, the money that she paid to make up a fraudulent claim against him that should have put her in jail. And the people who cooperated with her in trying to overthrow a lawfully elected president with a fraudulent, paid for, concocted frame up, Russian collusion. Or Biden, his 51 intelligence agents, and Stinkin' Blinken should be in jail for the thing they pulled off with the hard drive, the biggest censorship in American history, using it at the debate, getting the 51 prostitutes to say that it had earmarks of Russian collusion when the FBI had looked at it 8 months earlier and already concluded it didn't. And then using it in a debate, accusing me and Trump, particularly me, of being a Russian pawn, which did tremendous damage to me. Well, I am suing him for that in New Hampshire, because New Hampshire has a statute that encompasses all the other states and a better statute of limitations. So let's hope we can get justice on that one, because we are in New Hampshire, not the District of Columbia, not New York, not Fulton County. We're not in a corrupt, rotten Democrat city like Detroit. Or do you notice that that's where the allegations of the election being fixed are all? In rotten, crooked Democratic cities. They're pretty careful about where they did it. And do you notice they try very hard to get the cases brought in those places? And in fact, in my case, they weren't even happy with Atlanta, Georgia. They had to bring it to DC, where they know it's impossible for a jury to find for anything that has to do with Trump. So we don't change this. One of the great attributes of America that made it the greatest country on earth will be completely gone. And that is that we have a fair and honest justice system that treats everyone equally. This is a two-tiered justice system. There's justice for some, no justice for others. Biden can go get the free home, not file. Nothing will be done to him because he's in the upper echelon of that golden circle of protection. He can also take $31 million from China and then negotiate with China for us and do things that look very much like he's selling us out. And we can't even question if the two things are related to each other. What, do they think we're stupid? I mean, why would Biden have given up an airbase 400 miles from China if he hadn't gotten all that money from China? Nobody in their right mind would give up an airbase 400 miles from China. And why does the crooked press not focus on that? Because they know that they gave us a traitor and a crook, and that they betrayed their country as well by not doing the job they're supposed to do. They know what a crook he is. They know he's a crook, and they know he's a fool. And they also know that he's not mentally capable. So for them to come up with it now is going to be a terrible admission of guilt. So tomorrow we'll be back. We'll do a little more. We'll do a little more digging into this case involving the judge that lets criminals go out and stab people. We'll also take a look at what we missed: Biden's obstruction of Congress, which I think is a pretty darn serious case. And I think the real irony of it is it's Jean-Pierre who really kind of made the case against him when she said that he was fully aware of what his son was going to do. And what his son did was obstruct Congress. It's a lot better evidence than any evidence they have against Trump. And we'll take a look at the protests that are coming up, and we'll take a look at New Year's Eve, because there's a lot of worry about New Year's Eve. You can hear the New York City Police Department out there working, or fire department, which is very good. Gives you a little background sense of New York. And don't forget, go to X, formerly known as Twitter, hit subscribe. Really, you're going to have great programming there. You're going to enjoy it. And this is going to be the medium that we use to organize hundreds of thousands of people so that we can win the election and we can stay in contact, because as we move along, the whole purpose is to educate you so that you're ready to do battle, and also to help you find places where you can make the maximum contribution when we work out the communication system. And for that, we need your contribution in order to grow. So please do yourself a favor, do us a favor, hit subscription, $10 a month. And we get into the third, fourth month, we'll have a heck of an operation. And instead of just sitting back and worrying, we'll have something to do with making sure that we save our way of life. Well, God bless the people of Israel. God bless the people of America, and God bless America. Is to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze,